What's often living longer than their owners? Parrots? A very warm welcome to Monkey Boy's Toys, and to the item of seating furniture that is the sofa. Thanks very much for joining me again. Here's a sock with frogs on to look at. So, this week I thought we would have a look at the Savage World Thundercats figures that were released by Funko in 2020. So let's get into that, and I shall remove the sock from the shot. There we go. Now, the Savage World Thundercats figures were released over 2 waves, and there were 8 figures in total. They were 6 points of articulation, bulky figures in the same scale as Masters of the Universe figures. And I must say, I really do like the line. I mean, it's an unpopular opinion, but I prefer them to the LJN figures. Not to take away from the LJN line. I mean, they were the original Thundercats toy line, after all, but the Funko line, I feel, is more faithful to how the characters looked in the cartoon series. I will be comparing them to the LJN figures because I have quite a lot of those as well, and I'll be showing some images from the cartoon to illustrate my point. But the first wave, I think, had the strongest lineup of the two, and it featured Lion-O, Panthro, Slithe, and Mum-Ra. So let's have a look at that first wave now. Here we go. Here is the Lion-O figure. Now, I just need to point out that the colours on my camera here are very saturated. And then they don't appear quite as vibrant in real life as they appear on the screen now. Just something to be aware of if you thought you might like to pick up this line. But let's have a look at Lion-O. He was always my least favourite of the Thundercats, if I'm honest. I always thought he was a bit of a dick. But anyway, so we've got the 6 points of articulation. We've got the head moves, the waist moves, obviously the arms and the legs. Each figure comes with an accessory. In Lion-O's case, he comes with 2 accessories because the glove on his hand here is removable, and it's actually a more faithful colour to the cartoon. The LJN figure had a red glove, which wasn't as accurate. Here we can see the Sword of Omens. So here's Lion-O. Let's just bring in the LJN figure. Obviously, the LJN is a lot taller, but if we have a look at the face sculpts, I think the Funko figure here is more faithful to the cartoon than the LJN one. LJN is a little more simple and not quite as good, in my opinion. I think the bulky scale of these Funko figures works very well. I think they look very good with the Thundercats, so I don't think that's a real issue. He's a little bit bulkier than this Lion-O is, but there we go. So yeah, here's these 2 figures. I'll just pop a picture in the middle here of Lion-O from the cartoon so that you can see the comparison between them. Let's take him out of the way. We'll pop Lion-O to the back, and we'll have a look at the next figure in the wave, which is one of my favourite Thundercats characters, and that's Panthro. So here he is. Again, a really nice figure, quite faithful to the cartoon. His head is a little bit long, if I'm honest, slightly too long perhaps. But other than that, it's a fairly faithful representation of the figure. I'll bring in the LJN Panthro here. Again, it's very good. I mean, I think the LJN Panthro is possibly one of the strongest ones in that line. But there we go. There's a comparison for the 2. I'll pop a picture in the middle there of Panthro from the cartoon so you can have a look. There we go. Okay, let's remove that one and put Panthro to the back. Obviously, he comes with his nunchucks there. You can't put them in both hands because the spread of his arms is too wide, so they won't fit in both hands. You can only hold them in one hand. So there we go. Next up, we've got a really nice looking character here, and it's Slithe. If the camera will focus, there we go. There is Slithe. If we have a look at the LJN counterpart here, you can see they look quite different, or reasonably different. I really like this Slithe figure from Funko. It's really cool. He looks very nice. The colours are a bit more faithful to the cartoon and some of the details. So that's cool. Here's the LJN one, just for comparison. It's worthy of note that all the LJN figures had an action feature where you would press the button on the back and their arms would flap about. The Funko figures don't have any action feature. Anyway, here's Slithe. Let's pop a picture in the middle so you can see how he appeared in the cartoon. And we'll remove Slithe from the shot, and we'll pop him just there. He does stand okay on a flat surface because of his tail sort of balances him quite well. So So there we go. I can't quite get into the back because of his tail, so we'll just sort of stand him there until he inevitably falls over. He does come with an axe here, but I couldn't quite get it into his hand properly. The sculpts are a very hard plastic. I guess they could be warmed up in hot water or something, but I really couldn't be bothered to do that. And I didn't want to force the axe into his hand because some of the Funko figures have fingernails, as you can see here, and I didn't want to snap the end of his fingernails off. They don't all have fingernails. Lion-O doesn't, for example, but figures such as Panthro and Slithe here, they do have fingernails. So yes, he does have an axe, but I think it would require warming up his hand to get the axe into his hand. You can't feed it in from the top because the bottom of the axe is tapered out like this. Anyway, next up we've got Mumm-Ra, the ever-living. A nice looking figure, again very faithful to the cartoon. Looks really cool, comes with this weird sort of double sword thing, whatever that is. So yeah, he looks really cool. Let's bring in the LJN figure, which is massive. There we go. Again, the colours seem to be more faithful on the Funko version here, and sort of his clothing and stuff looks more realistic. I quite like the way that his cape is red on the outside and black on the inside. I think that looks really cool. And his headdress is a little bit more faithful to the cartoon as well. You see the LJN figure here. He looks a bit, I don't know, he reminds me a bit more of Medusa, or one of those kind of stop motion animation characters with his appearance there. But anyway, there we go. There are those two. Let's pop a picture in the middle of Mumm-Ra. It's not going to focus on him. Focus. There we go. And so we can see how he looked in the cartoon. There we go. Put Mumm-Ra down. There we go. Sit him there. Okay, and that was the first wave of the Funko line. I think it's a strong line. We've got obviously Lion-O being the main character. We've got Panthro, which was always a fan favourite. And we've got the two main bad guys. We've got Slithe and Mumm-Ra. So I think that was a very strong line. The second line, in my opinion, wasn't as strong. We've got a few characters in there that weren't the best. But anyway, let's have a look at the second line, which featured Monkeyan, Jackalman, Tigra, and Cheetara. Okay, so first we'll bring in Monkeyan. Here's Monkeyan. He looks pretty cool. Nice looking figure. Again, faithful to the cartoon. I know I'm repeating myself quite a bit here. He's got a lovely serial number on his back. But there we go. There's Monkeyan. If I bring in the LJN version, we can see those for comparison. I mean, the LJN isn't a bad figure, but I think it's kind of, I don't know whether they cut corners or just couldn't be bothered, but he doesn't look as convincingly like the cartoon. Let's have a look at a picture of that so that you can see the character as he appeared in the cartoon. I think you'll agree that the Funko figure looks a bit more accurate. Let's remove Monkeyan. Stand him next to Mumm-Ra there. He does come with this sort of, is this a mace or a morning star? I can't remember the name of it. A spiky ball on a rope. Again, I couldn't get this into his hand very easily. Monkeyan doesn't seem to have. Has he got fingernails? Not as much as some of the other figures. But again, I couldn't get this into his hand very easily. As you can see, the grip is very tight. It doesn't allow for any space to put the handle of this weapon. And I didn't want to force it. And again, couldn't be asked to do the hot water treatment. So there we go. There's Monkeyan. Next up, we've got Jackalman, and he has the opposite problem in that his grip is a bit too loose to hold his weapon very well. I think is that a halberd or something? I'm not sure what that's called. Anyway, there's Jackalman. I haven't really showed you the back of these figures very well. Sorry about that. Anyway, here we go. Let's bring in the LJN Jackalman, who was always very sort of hunched over, looked more like a werewolf, really. There's something about his face. Yes, I guess he looks a bit jackally, but I don't know. I was never really convinced by his face. I like the fact that he has a snarl on one side and a normal mouth, or a closed mouth on the other side. I always thought that was pretty cool. But there we go. If we pop them side by side, again, I'm having trouble with focusing here. Come on, focus, you shit. There we are. Let's have a look at Jackalman as he appeared in the cartoon. There we go, so you can see the comparison there. Again, the Funko one is in my opinion much more faithful to the cartoon. I think that's fairly apparent. We'll pop him up there next to Monkeyan. Next up we've got one of my lesser favourite characters from Thundercats, which is Tigra. He was kind of my second worst Thundercat, really. I always preferred Panthro and Chitara, to be honest, but here's a Funko version of him. He does come with his whip, as you can see here, which is quite cool. And let's bring in the LJN version. Mine is slightly yellowed on his midriff there, but if we have a look at the Funko one, we can see his hair he's got that sort of Wolverine flick to the top of his hairline there, whereas the LJN version was sort of, I don't know, to me it didn't really look like Tigra from the cartoon. Let's have a look at the picture of him just so we can see the comparison. Again, I think you'll agree that the Funko version is more faithful to the cartoon. Okay, let's pop him down. And let's just move him along a bit. There we are. And finally, we have Chitara. Obviously not as buff and henched out as the other figures. This is using a female buck, which obviously is more appropriate. If she was sort of really hench like the other figures, it would look quite stupid. But I really like the look of this figure. She comes with her bow staff, as you can see. Chitara was always one of my favourite characters. I thought she was awesome. So yeah, there we go. There's Chitara. If we bring in the LJN version, here she is. I think the expression on the Funko one is a bit bland. She looks rather sort of serious. But it's not a bad face sculpt anyway. Chitara in the cartoon never had long hair, but I don't think her hair was quite as short as the LJN figure portrays. It's worthy of note that my LJN figure is the only Thundercats figure I have with a weapon, which was kindly donated to the channel by Luke at Reynolds Reviews. She looks a bit silly standing without her weapon. All the other figures you can sort of get away with, but the LJN Chitara does look better when she's holding her staff. Oh, there's my front door. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. There we go. So here are the two Chitara figures. Once again, I will chuck a picture up so you can see how she appeared in the cartoon. There's not much difference in their appearance. They're both pretty accurate, I guess. It's just the details in the sculpt. I feel a bit more convincing on the Funko version. I mean, this video sounds like I'm really putting a lot of hate on the LJN line, which I don't mean to do at all. I'm very fond of the line, and I do have many of the figures. You've already seen 8 of them, so I do like the LJN line. But I must say I'm very impressed with the Funko line, and I do prefer that, if I'm honest, in terms of sort of display and cartoon accuracy. Anyway, let's pop Chitara off to the back there. I haven't framed all this particularly well. Chitara's a bit wobbly, but there we go. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that look at the Funko Thundercats line from 2020. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help the channel. Do share with any other parrots you may know, and please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let me know what you think in the comments of this line. Do you like the Funko line? Is it something you might be interested in picking up? Or are you a die-hard LJN fan? Let me know in the comments. So, I'm going to make like a shepherd and get the flock out of here. See you next time. Bye!
My little pony, skinny and bony, down in the stable, chewing a table.